The noise yanked me from sleep like a fist around my throat. Sharp, loud, unrelenting. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The room around me was swallowed in darkness. The sheets twisted around my legs like I'd been wrestling them in my sleep. My mind clawed through the fog, trying to figure out what was happening. Then I saw the light, a dull glow spilling across the ceiling. My phone, face down on the nightstand, vibrating like it was trying to escape. I reached for it, bumbled. My fingers were numb with sleep. I turned it over and the brightness stabbed my eyes, blinding me for a second. The sound was still blaring, a high-pitched alarm I'd never heard before. It wasn't my normal notification. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a weather alert. Emergency alert, stay inside. Something is out there. That was it. No further details, no explanation, just those words in bold, unyielding text. I stared at it, blinked. My brain was slow to process. Emergency alert? For what? I waited for the usual explanation. A tornado warning, a missing child, some kind of gas leak in the area. But there was nothing, just the order. Stay inside. The sound stopped. The screen flickered, once, twice, and then shut off. Just like that, the glow vanished. The room sank back into complete darkness. I tapped the power button, no response. Again, still nothing. The battery had been nearly full before I went to sleep. Now it was dead. I swallowed, pushing myself upright. Something felt wrong. Not just with my phone, with everything. My ears strained, but there was only silence. The kind of silence that didn't belong at this hour. No wind rattling the windows, no distant hum of passing cars, no soft creaks of the house settling. It was like the world had stopped breathing. I needed answers. If this was real, someone else would be talking about it. My laptop was still on my desk. I flipped it open, the blue light washing over my hands as the screen came to life. The news didn't say a word about it. No breaking alerts, no reports of a statewide issue. Nothing. I clicked through different sites. Nothing but the usual. Sports updates, celebrity gossip, an article about an upcoming election. No mention of an emergency. I opened social media. That's where I found it. The same message. Screenshot after screenshot, posted by people in my area. Everyone had gotten the alert. No one knew why. Anyone else get this? What's going on? System glitch or real? Some were joking about it. Others sounded nervous. But one post caught my attention. Look outside. I saw something. My stomach tightened. I clicked on the thread. The replies were a mix of sarcasm and concern. You okay? What do you mean? Bro, it's 3 a.m. Go to sleep. I swear there's someone just standing there. They haven't moved. More comments flooded in. I saw them too. They don't move. They're just standing there. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. This had to be a prank. A mass panic event. Some idiot trying to start a rumor. I shut my laptop and rubbed my eyes. Then I heard it. Scratch, scratch, soft, just beneath my window. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood on end. I told myself it was nothing. A branch. A raccoon. Something normal. But I didn't check. I didn't want to. I couldn't shake the feeling. I tried, but it settled into my bones. I had to look. Just for a second. I moved toward the window. My fingers barely nudged the curtain, pulling it just enough to see through the gap. At first, everything looked the same. The empty street, the parked cars, the dim glow of the streetlights. Nothing unusual. Then I saw it. A figure. Tall. Unmoving. It stood beneath the streetlight, perfectly still. The shape of it was wrong. The arms were too long, the shoulders too high, the head slightly tilted as if listening. I felt a pull in my stomach, like I was standing at the edge of a drop-off. The figure didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't breathe. Then it lifted an arm, slow, deliberate, reaching toward me. I yanked the curtain shut, stepped back. The air in my lungs felt too thick to breathe. My phone buzzed. The screen stayed black, but a notification bar glowed at the top. Do not make direct visual contact. I turned it over, pressed it against my leg, like that would make it go away. This was real. Someone knew what was happening. Someone was trying to warn us. I locked the doors, every single one, checked the windows, pulled the blinds down, shut off the lights. The house sank into darkness, but I didn't care. I needed sleep, just for a little while. I lay down, forcing my eyes shut, told myself it was fine. The door was locked, the windows were shut. Then I heard it. Tap, 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 soft, rhythmic, against the glass. It didn't stop. By morning, everything should have been normal again. It wasn't. The world was awake, but something was wrong. The town was buzzing, but there were no answers. People were missing. No one was answering calls. No one was replying to messages. The local news was no help. They reported the alerts but had no explanation. Then the footage surfaced. A security camera, a gas station. The pumps were empty, the lot deserted, except for them. A row of figures standing motionless. They didn't move. They didn't speak. Their heads were tilted, their bodies too still. No one got out of their cars. The station attendant never appeared. Then the second alert hit. Stay inside, lock doors, avoid outdoors after dark. No one joked this time. By morning, the city was awake, but it wasn't alive. It was buzzing, but not in the usual way. People weren't heading to work, they weren't walking their dogs, they weren't starting their day with the slow ease of routine. They were out for something else. They were desperate. The grocery stores were packed. Carts crashed into each other in the narrow aisles. Shelves emptied faster than workers could restock them. Water, canned food, batteries, anything that could last. People filled their arms with whatever they could carry, some shoving, others just staring at their phones, waiting for another alert. Some still whispered that it was a hoax. Others weren't willing to take that chance. I stood by the shelves, listening. People weren't just panicking, they were talking, and the things they were saying, they don't chase you, they just wait. My cousin looked at one too long. No one's seen him since. They're standing on the sidewalks now, just standing, like they're waiting for something. I grabbed a case of bottled water and moved toward the front, ignoring the sounds of an argument breaking out near the registers. I thought about leaving the city, just getting in my car and driving. But if those things were at the intersections, if they were spreading, where would I go? As I stepped out onto the street, I saw them. One at the corner, another by the bus stop, another standing in the parking lot, its head slightly tilted. They weren't moving, but they weren't gone either. Traffic wasn't moving the way it should. Cars inched forward, some honking, but most were silent. People sat inside, gripping their steering wheels, eyes shifting between the road and their mirrors. Waiting. A horn blared. Someone's nerves snapped. A car door slammed. A man stormed out, throwing his arms in the air, shouting, "What the hell are we waiting for? Move!" He stepped forward, right into the open street. The second he did, the air seemed to shift. Everything around me felt heavier. Like the moment before a downpour, a figure stood by the crosswalk, the same kind I'd seen before. The man turned toward it, throwing up his hands frustrated, not really looking. The figure twitched, a snap of motion, unnatural, jarring, like something pulled by invisible strings. The man's rant cut short. He stiffened. His body lurched forward mid-step. Then he was gone. No sound, no struggle. 1 second he was there. The next, only his clothes remained, crumpled in the street as if he had slipped right out of them. A scream broke through the silence, then another, then chaos. Doors flew open, people ran. Others locked their cars and refused to move. The figures didn't chase. They didn't follow. They only stood, heads angled slightly as if listening to the fear around them. I turned and ran. At home, I locked the door and reached for my phone. No signal. My laptop wouldn't connect to anything. The router blinked red, the internet was gone. I turned on the news. Static. Every channel. The cable was out, but one station still played. The picture was grainy. The anchor was pale, eyes darting from the teleprompter to something off-screen. He swallowed. We don't have confirmation on the origin of the alerts. Law enforcement has not issued a statement. He stopped. His expression shifted, like someone was speaking in his earpiece. His voice lowered. Do not look at them. Do not answer the door. If they call your name, do not respond. The screen cut to static. Then the lights went out. Not just my house, the entire street, the whole city. The moment the power failed, something changed. The air felt different. The silence grew heavier, and in that silence, something moved. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Just a small gap in the blinds, just enough to see. They were walking now. Not fast, not chasing, but moving. And worse, there were more of them. People started disappearing. Not all at once, not in the open, just gone. Locked doors meant nothing. People would turn their backs for just a second, and when they turned around, someone was missing. All that remained were their belongings. A phone buzzing against the floor, a pair of shoes left in the doorway, a spilled cup of coffee seeping into the carpet. Then the whispers started. At first, they came from outside, a voice too low to make out the words. Then closer. Then by the windows. Then by the door. A neighbor ran. I heard them before I saw them. The front door slammed open, footsteps pounding against the pavement. They were running for their car, but the figures were waiting. A circle of them, standing still. I don't know if the neighbor screamed. I don't know if they begged. All I know is that one moment they were there, and the next, the car door was open. The engine was running, but the seat was empty. The phone they dropped started to ring. The caller ID showed no number. I couldn't stay in the house. I wasn't the only one thinking the same. Others had taken shelter in a nearby store. I made it there by moving fast, keeping my head down, refusing to look at anything standing too still. There were a handful of us all gathered in the dim space between the aisles. No one spoke at first. No one wanted to acknowledge the reality of it. Then we heard it. A sound in the distance. Faint. Almost like a hum. It didn't belong to any machine. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the sound of the city dying. It was something else. And it was getting louder. A radio crackled somewhere behind the counter. A voice. Shaky. Strained. Do not let them touch you. They are learning. They are adapting. They know we are afraid. We had to leave. Staying meant waiting for the inevitable. We decided to run. A shelter had been set up. At least that's what some of the group heard. If we could get there, maybe we'd be safe. But halfway there, we saw them waiting. Not scattered. Not spread out like before. A line of them standing in perfect formation across the street, as if they had been expecting us. We hesitated. No one wanted to move. No one wanted to be the first to step forward. But we couldn't stay in the open. We had to try. We cut through alleyways, back roads, anywhere we could avoid being seen. The figures never followed. They never turned their heads. But somehow, every time we reached a new road, a new stretch of pavement, there they were. Waiting. The shelter wasn't a shelter at all. The door stood open. No guards, no check-in station, no sign of anyone. Clothing littered the ground. Jackets, shoes, bags. A phone buzzed near my feet. I picked it up. The screen glowed with a message. Another emergency alert. But this one was different. They have learned our voices. Do not answer. A breath. Too close. Right behind me. It's okay now. A whisper. Soft. Familiar. You can come out. At first it was subtle. A voice in the distance, just outside. Soft, cautious, almost hesitant. Like someone searching for a lost friend. A family member calling home. A neighbor checking in. Then it got closer. Nathan? A whisper just beyond the window. A name that didn't belong to anyone in the room. Emma? A woman's voice near the door. Quiet, faint. A tone full of relief, as if she had finally found who she was looking for. We didn't move. We barely breathed. No one was opening the door. No one was answering. We had all seen what happened to those who did. But the voices didn't stop. They moved along the walls, the cracks in the foundation, seeping through the gaps beneath doors, crawling through the air like something alive. Tom? Danielle? Come out. It's safe now. It wasn't. We all knew it wasn't. The woman in the corner, she couldn't take it. Her hands covered her mouth, her body trembling so hard I thought she might collapse. Then she gasped. Her face went pale. And she ran. We didn't have time to stop her. She ripped the door open and froze. The hallway outside was empty, or at least it looked that way. She took a shaky breath and stepped forward. Just one step. That's all it took. The moment she crossed the threshold, her body went rigid. Her fingers twitched, her breath hitched, her head snapped to the side as if someone had grabbed her by the chin and twisted it too far, too fast. Then, her eyes darkened. Black seeped into them like ink, swallowing everything inside them until there was nothing left. She turned back to face us, but it wasn't her anymore. Her arms hung loose at her sides, her posture too slack, her lips curled slightly, not into a smile but something close, something almost rehearsed. She stepped back and the door shut between us. We never saw her again. We had to leave. We had waited too long, stayed in one place for too many hours. The voices weren't going away. They were getting stronger, and worse, they were getting smarter. The static had swallowed every station, every channel. But then, out of nowhere, a voice broke through. A convoy is evacuating survivors north. You have one chance to escape. No location. No further instructions. Just those words, repeated over and over, cutting in and out of the static like a broken signal. But it was something. We ran. We burst out of the building and into the street. The air outside was thick, too still, like the world had stopped breathing. The sky above was empty. No stars, no moon, just a dull, endless stretch of nothing. And then we saw them, lined up along the sidewalks, standing in the spaces between buildings, their heads tilted at odd angles, waiting. They didn't chase. They never did. But they were watching, listening. We didn't stop. We kept moving, kept running, our footsteps the only sound in the dead city. We needed a car. Anything that could get us out of here faster. There, just ahead. A sedan, engine still running, driver's side door hanging open, like someone had abandoned it in a hurry. We rushed toward it, shoving inside. Someone twisted the key. The engine roared, too loud in the quiet, making my stomach twist. But it didn't matter. We were moving. We were leaving. Then someone looked back. Don't. Too late. Their breath caught in their throat. Their bodies stiffened. The car jerked slightly as they lost control of their limbs, fingers twitching uselessly at their sides, and then their eyes blackened. The door unlocked. They stepped out. We didn't wait to see what happened next. The car sped forward, leaving them behind. The city thinned out behind us. Buildings turned into open stretches of abandoned highways. The roads ahead were empty, stretching into the distance with no signs of life. Just darkness on either side, yawning open like a void. Then we saw the barricade. It stood at the edge of the horizon, a wall of concrete and steel, military vehicles lined up in formation. Shapes stood in the distance, soldiers, their figures rigid and still. We slowed as we approached. No one waved us forward. No guns were raised. No one moved at all. Something was wrong. The air felt heavier. Like we had stepped into something that wasn't entirely real anymore. Like if we took one step too far, we'd never step back. One of the soldiers took a step forward. His movements were slow, unnatural. His hand raised in a gesture that almost looked welcoming. Almost. Then he spoke. The voice that came from his mouth wasn't right. It wasn't one voice. It was many. Layered, distorted. Like too many people trying to speak at once, their words overlapping in something that sounded close to human but wasn't. You're safe now. Come closer. No one moved. No one breathed. Come closer. The others stepped forward in perfect unison. A line of them. Too many. All standing too still. All waiting. One by one they raised their hands. Their faces were too blank, too smooth. Their eyes too dark, too hollow. The car idled. No one reached for the door. Something was waiting for us to decide.